Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday with the Portland State Outdoor Program. These have been some virtual resources we've been creating and posting to YouTube, different videos about different outdoor activities and just kind of sharing some information for y'all while we hadn't been able to get outside together. This is our final workshop of this term. And so we wanted to do things a little bit differently and hold a panel discussion with some of our staff and trip leaders. And we're just kind of going to be chatting and answering some questions about different outdoor things.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know too much about the outdoor program, we've been around since 1966, which is super cool. So we have a history at Portland State, and we've been running trips pretty much that entire time. We also have a rental component, and then also the climbing center upstairs in the ASRC building. So this is only one component of what we do, but we just thought it'd be super cool to have folks submit some questions, and then for us to just answer and kind of just have some conversations and connect a little bit better with folks who are either just like interested in like who we are and what we do, and just kind of see where it goes. So we've got a set of questions, and then we'll just go through them and have some conversations on the side and everything. So I think the very first one, as it's appropriate, is to tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what your favorite outdoor activity is, what you really love about getting outside, and we'll start from there. So who wants to take the first question?
I can go. My name's Christina. I am getting my master's in social work here at PSU. I grew up in Minnesota and have lived in Colorado and Bend before moving to Portland for school. Some things I like to do other than outdoor stuff when not in school, I like reading, podcasts, cooking, art things, but I do really enjoy getting outside. And my favorite outdoor activity would probably be like hiking or backpacking. I like kind of having like a slower pace to just kind of like wander through things and be in different spaces. Love spending time in the mountains, and especially loving the wildflowers that are out right now.
Awesome. I can go next, actually. So Chris Bullard, he, him. I've been out the outdoor program. I'm one of the pro staff there. So I've been here for like 7 years now, which has been really fun. I've worked at LSU, and kind of before that was primarily from the Southeast. I was born in Washington, D.C., of all places. Moved around a ton. And really for me, I actually didn't really start getting into the outdoors until like end of high school, but really it wasn't until like my freshman year I started working at the outdoor program at my undergrad, and really just kind of fell in love with the community, fell in love with just the whole getting outside and kind of becoming a little closer to nature, and then like making great friends along the way and having a good time. So that's kind of what got me into it a little bit. But really specifically, I think for me, my favorite kind of activities, generally they're going to be like skiing or climbing. I try to stay seasonal just so I don't get too burnt out. There are folks who like climb all year, but I like to kind of change it up a little bit. So right now is kind of it's an in-between. It's like raining right now, but kind of ski season's dying down, and hopefully climbing season will be picking up. But those are kind of my favorite outdoor activities.
I can go next. So my name is Tamara Zellen. I use she, her pronouns, and I grew up in Beaverton, but right now I'm residing in the downtown area. I'm a sophomore. I'm a psychology major, but I'm probably going to try and switch to environmental studies. I wanted to become a trip leader because I've just always really loved going outside. When I was in preschool, my preschool was like in a forest, and each day, rain or shine, we would go out and like walk around. It was pretty cool. I think like our last day of school, we walked like 5 miles, which is pretty impressive for a preschooler. But I just always loved just being outside, basically. And that's why I wanted to become involved in the outdoor program, because I just really like being outside, hiking, backpacking, camping, and I really want to introduce other people to the outdoors as well, which is a part of my future career that I'm interested in is making the outdoors more accessible to people who have a disability or mental health issue or struggle that they're dealing with. And yeah, I've just always loved getting outside and meeting new people and trying to make it more accessible for everybody else. Some of my favorite outdoor activities include hiking, trail running, like in the Forest Park area down in Portland, backpacking, though I haven't done a ton of backpacking, as well as camping.
Sweet. And my name is Mela, she, her, hers. I am about to graduate with my biology degree from Portland State. So that's super exciting. I've been working at the outdoor program since I was a freshman, and I started in the equipment center and then did our wild program, which is wilderness leadership development. And that's how I became a trip leader. And then I've been a trip leader for a couple years, and I'm also the student coordinator for trips and outreach right now. So long journey with the outdoor program, and it's been super awesome. Definitely a core part of my community here at PSU. I grew up in Southern Oregon down in Ashland, and similarly got into the outdoors through like school programs and opportunities like that. And so kind of got an appreciation for programs like our program that help people get outside for like the first time, and like helping to open those doors, because some activities are kind of hard to get started with. But my favorites probably also vary season to season. I'm really excited for the rafting season coming up. And I also really like snow things. I like snowboarding, and I'm trying to get into skiing. And I also always just enjoy a good walk where I can geek out about plants and nature, and being able to appreciate the outdoors that are right around us as well, I think is very important. Yeah.
So Tama kind of went in this a little bit, but the next question is really, why did you want to become a trip leader? Like what do you get from that? Why did you start that journey? Yeah, and I guess I can start. I also jumped into it a little bit. For me, it really was the community aspect. And I think just that's where I found, folks who were similar to me and just their appreciation of nature and wanted to get outside. It was in southern Georgia, so it was a little bit different. Definitely less skiing. But, there it was really about coming together and like with like-minded folks to just like, for us, we were traveling 6, 7, 8 hours into like North Carolina or like down to Florida to do some sea kayaking. And, you spent almost just as much time like in the van as you did actually doing the activity, sometimes if not more. But I think it was totally worth it. There are some folks who to this day, I still keep in touch with, who I went through that program with, been to a couple weddings for folks who like met there, and like, yeah, so really for me, it was that community. I think initially that pulled me in, and I think now a lot of, I've always attached a lot of value and worth to getting outside, and I think folks can learn a lot, and folks can learn a lot, not just about like, the actual environment and the activity, but also about themselves, and become better folks through these activities, because, you're pushing yourself, you're trying new things, and hopefully building some of that kind of self-confidence to bring back into the city, and kind of whether or not, like going through different classes or whatever it is. And also for me personally, it's also just really calming, and kind of calms me down, reminds me of like, okay, cool, like we're here, like we're in a good place, like let's just keep moving
on. I can go next. So like I had said, I wanted to become a trip leader because part of my kind of future career goal is to make the outdoors more accessible. And just in general, I've always loved being able to socialize and get outside. Like if I have both of those things, my life is basically complete. And I first applied for the Wild internship with the outdoor program. It was my freshman year, and I saw it and I was like, wow, this sounds so cool. Like you get to just be outside, help out on trips. And I also was a pretty shy freshman. So I really wanted to find a way to get involved with people on campus who had really similar interests back in high school. It was a struggle to find people to get outside with besides my family. So I wanted to become a trip leader and get involved with the outdoor program because I thought like it's the perfect way to get outside, meet people who also love getting outside, and also kind of get a head start on my just future career, I suppose. And it's definitely been a really good choice because I found exactly what I was looking for, like so many amazing people to hang out with and go on trips with. And also I've really discovered a lot of cool places that I know I probably would not have discovered if I had not been a part of the outdoor program. So those are really the main reasons that I wanted to become involved with the wild internships and then eventually become a trip leader.
So I guess just to start, I like growing up was not really into the outdoors at all. I grew up in Minnesota and was like in the suburbs, and there just like wasn't a lot of access and a lot of bugs. And actually kind of first found myself like enjoying the outdoor spaces and hiking with folks when I lived in Colorado for a little bit. And then I moved out to Bend and started working as a guide for like a wilderness therapy program. And when I was up in Portland for getting my wilderness first responder certification, I was like couch surfing with somebody. And they were working in the outdoor program, and I went to a potluck with a bunch of folks that were all a part of there. And I was like, wow, this is such a cool community. And then a few years later, when I came up here for school, applied to work for the program. After having that experience of like meeting all those folks and like just feeling the positive connections and community that existed within the outdoor program. So and then part of it was also just to continue, like it's been helpful for me to like force me to kind of get outside while in school and kind of struggling with like taking care of my mental health, and hiking is always something that's been helpful for me in that. And I also like just really enjoy connecting with folks in outdoor spaces and find it super easy and care about like making it more accessible for a wider community. So love kind of being a part of that and helping with that. And honestly, like these workshops have also been a really cool way to do that, to kind of just like about tools and give people like more support so that they can feel comfortable doing that on their own.
Christina, when were you up for that? I don't know if I knew that. I didn't know that if you came up and you were at a potluck. When was that?
It would have been like probably 2017, that winter.
Is it one of the grapevine potlucks?
I don't know. It was at a house that was like really close to campus. Yeah. I won't like say the name of the person I'm staying with on here, but we can talk more about that later.
Funny. Okay.
Yeah. So that was mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, well, I would definitely echo a lot of the things that have already been said. Definitely was about wanting to increase access, and like because I got into the outdoors through a school program and like through opportunities like that, like being able to provide that for folks was very interesting to me, and I really wanted to be able to do that. As a biology major and someone who cares a lot about conservation, I also am really interested in the connection between like recreation and preservation of spaces, and like being able to kind of foster that stewardship of land on trips and connect folks to that, and hopefully, make some individual changes as we can. And then, definitely community, teaching people skills, and then also like having personal growth as a teacher, like an educator, and as like my outdoor knowledge, all of that have been really awesome aspects of being a trip leader. Yeah.
So the next question we got here is, what is your favorite memory from a trip you've led? And I'll open this up because I know folks have like had trips that you've led or been a part of like prior to this too. So if it's potentially prior to PSU, you can toss that in there too. But favorite memory from a trip you've led? Who wants to take that one first?
I'm not volunteering to go yet, but I just think it's funny because as soon as I hear this question, like all the things that have gone wrong on trips is what first comes into my head, you know? But I'm still thinking.
Yeah, it's funny how sometimes those go hand in hand. Not like terrible things that go wrong, but like, oh yeah, we forgot
Yeah.
the key. I think of like one time forgetting keys to like the shuttle car, like the shuttle vehicles, and then we had to wait and get like a, you know, had to hitchhike back up to the top of the, yeah, just like things like that. It's interesting. I think one of my favorite, I think at PSU, Melee was actually on the trip, and it was one of our bigger trips. We actually went over to Wyoming and the Tetons, and it was after doing some backpacking for the day. We like got into camp, and it was just, you know, we're right on a lake, and then it's just like the entire Teton range, and you're just staring at it, and like everyone's having a good time. We had a fire going, and then like I think Mela was just drawing like the mountains, and it was just like a very kind of surreal, like, you know, Mela could have just taken a picture, but instead she was drawing it. And I think even just like seeing someone else feel that connection and that trip in general, I think this was like maybe one of our last nights there too. So we had gotten to know each other pretty well, you know, and on that trip, like we had seen like, you know, baby moose with like, you know, moose mama, and like that was kind of terrifying, but then like also really cool, and just like being in that space. Yeah, and that was a couple of years ago, and like just being in that space, and then like where we are now with like Mela graduating, and just like it was a really cool experience. I think for the trip, but then also sharing that there were also some, you know, trip leaders who have already graduated too. So like that's, for me, that was a really cool one.
Oh, good memories. Yeah, that was a very good trip. I am thinking about a trip which was with ODP staff, but it was kind of just a personal trip we planned. We were summiting Mount Adams, and it was the first time I had done any mountaineering, which was really awesome. That's another awesome thing about our community, is that we have people of kind of varying skill levels, so we can, you know, teach each other things and take each other on trips that are outside of our skill base or comfort zone. But what I really enjoyed about this trip was we split into two groups, and one of the groups was summiting in one day, and so they had to start at like midnight or like 1 a.m. and hike all day. And then the group I was in, we were doing it in 2 days, so we camped halfway up, and we didn't make any kind of like timing plans about trying to meet up with them. But we just so happened to get to the summit at like the exact same time from our different schedules. And that was just a lot of stoke. Everyone was super happy, and it was awesome to see everybody at the top, and it was very unexpected. And then of course the sliding down a mountain on your butt is always very fun. That was a good memory.
I'll go next. So I have a favorite memory from a trip that I was a part of my freshman year. It was like this, I think it's like an orientation trip or something back in 2019. Then another one that I was on with, it was like a trip leader training trip that we did to like the White River area in Mount Hood. So with the orientation freshman trip, I remember it was really like cold and rainy, and everything was just kind of wet. And this was a backpacking trip. I'm forgetting the exact area, but I think it was about 4 or 5 nights. So it's just really cold and rainy, and we were all just kind of suffering, but it was still fun. It was just difficult. And then the last night we were doing car camping, and it was such beautiful weather, and we got to camp next to a river, and I just remember how good it felt to like put everything to dry in the sun and just like sitting by the river and like the beautiful weather. And then it just kind of made me think like how I actually enjoyed that rain and then being able to go back to the sun. So that was just a really fun memory of like suffering and being cold, and then just being so comfortable and like in a little heaven by the river in the sun. That was really nice. And so on the training trip at White River, Mount Hood. It was during the winter, so of course it was really snowy, and it was kind of a difficult trip because at the start, the day that we started to hike in, we all snowshoed in, I should say. I think it was like misting or something. I think you were on the trip, Chris. It was misting or something, and it was really cold, and it was just a really cold night. But the next day, like I woke up just like super energetic, like nonetheless. And that day we were practicing with like crampons and ice axes, and we spent the morning like on this really steep slope. I can't remember the area, but I just remember getting to like play around in the deep snow and like kind of sliding down. And it's just a ton of fun to be able to like have fun like a little kid just playing like in this deep snow on a slope. And it was just a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed that trip of having like a difficult night, but then just really enjoying yourself the next day. I kind of like when trips start out like really difficult, but then they just like get like insanely better like the next day as you like get refreshed and realize like how you got through like this difficult cold time together. So I always enjoy that, like being cold and having something difficult and then having something really fun happen afterwards. So
That was also the trip that you became best friends with the Canada Jay. We had a friendly neighborhood bird.
yeah, like it went on my head like 5 times or something. That was pretty fun. I forgot about that.
Well, I think I'm the last to go. So I'll share one BCM related memory and one non. I think my favorite memory guiding is a couple of years ago, I've worked in the summers for a program called Big City Mountaineers that operates out of Portland. They like partner with different youth agencies to take teenagers on backpacking trips. And we were in the Mount Adams area and hiked up to this. We're supposed to camp a little higher, but like weren't gonna make it, and so camped lower. And then everybody decided to get up at like 3 a.m. and hike to the higher area for sunrise. And we got up there and it was like a full moon, and from where we were you could see like the full moon setting on one side and the sun rising on the other side, and like Mount St. Helens off in the distance and some other mountains in the area. It was just like a really beautiful, incredible moment in the backcountry. And then my favorite outdoor program trip that I've done just honestly recently, I have a game that I love to play with folks in the outdoors called Blind Monkey Poo Toss, and we played that on the last trip that I went on. Basically people are like blindfolded and trying to find things and throw things at each other through like challenging communication barriers and stuff like that, and it just is super silly and fun, and I love that. So those are some of my favorite memories.
Bless you. So our next question that we got here is, what would be your advice for someone new to getting outside? So if you could give some advice to folks who maybe they've been interested in like getting outside, but they're hesitant, like what sort of advice would you have for someone who's new to this?
I can start. I think my first thought is like equipment, of having the right equipment to get outside. And if you need that, come to the Equipment Center, the outdoor program. It's a really good resource. But I think also like one of the most important things besides that is having like the right mindset. I think if you look at like media and stuff, there's probably a lot of misconceptions of who can be outside. And I think it's really important to remember, like, regardless of your background or your experience level, like you can always, like the whole point of being outside is to enjoy it. But I think there's this misconception that you have to be like super fast or do like a ton of distance. But I think the most important thing to remember is just have the mindset of like enjoying it and relaxing and learning about the outdoors. So I think that's one of the most important things, is to have like the right mindset. And I think you should have that mindset when you start a lot of new things, because I think like when I start something new, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I know everyone's different, but I think that sometimes maybe that can be kind of a barrier to getting outside, is thinking that you have to do things a certain way or do a certain amount of distance. So I think that's really important to have. And regarding equipment, like you don't need to have anything super expensive or high tech. That's probably another misconception that you need to have like this super fancy, expensive things to make it through, but really you just need like the basics to like be warm and have water and food and all of that, and have shelter if you're planning to camp. So I think another really great thing to have as you are introduced to the outdoors, or if you're a beginner, is to have a friend or just someone to go along with to help you. And it's just always nice to have someone by your side for safety reasons and just for that sort of companionship. And it's totally okay to do things solo. I think for me personally, it's just always been helpful to have someone by my side kind of along the journey, so to speak. So I think those are the biggest things, is having like the mindset, like you don't have to be at a certain level, you don't have to reach any sort of standard. It's just enjoy yourself and relax and have a nice time and learn about the outdoors, and having like some basic equipment. It doesn't have to be high tech. And then also having the right, like somebody who can kind of be there with you or to go along with. So
Yeah, no, for sure. I definitely agree and think that mentorship aspect, whatever that looks like, if it's a friend, if it's like, someone that you've met recently, but like, I think especially as we get into more of those like, like the riskier activities, like especially as you get into climbing and mountaineering and, any of the like paddling kind of disciplines, like it's definitely helpful to have somebody who has more experience and can kind of help you through that. Kind of just like that learning curve, because there is a learning curve with all of this. And I think there are a couple ways to do that. You can, if it's climbing related, even starting at the climbing gym. I think the PSU climbing gym has a really good community for folks who are just getting started, and with staff there being able to help out and provide tips and tricks and all that fun stuff. Or even just online. Like I think there are a lot of different forums that you can check out. And I like that idea that Tom was also talking about, is just like having the right mindset as well. And like, just heading out into slow chunks, and slowly building that. Like that's the worst, is like you overcommit, or like you set too big of a plan and then like it just doesn't work out. So like getting those little victories, those quick day hikes, for me, those are almost, just as fun. The quick day hikes, or like the overnight stuff, or even, heading to campsite, like campgrounds and that sort of stuff, where it's a little bit more of a controlled environment, just to learn and practice your skills. I think, I think that group of friends is super helpful too, if you can find those, or if you can find someone to go out with.
Yeah, and say like on top of all that, there's a lot of, and this will be like more accessible as COVID becomes less of a concern, but like meetup groups and things like that, where people are like going on hikes on the weekend. That's a really great way to like get like find some people to get involved. Often you can like figure out the carpool situations too, depending on folks' comfortability of things. I'd also say if like getting gear feels like a barrier, there's like lots of places you can get used gear, like Craigslist and eBay, and like Next Adventure has a basement with like all used stuff, so that's like definitely worth checking out. So those are like some kinds of things to kind of help with some of those barriers. I'd also say kind of just like doing your research beforehand, like knowing what you need to like for if you're hiking or something like that, if you need a pass or whatnot. We also go into a lot of this stuff in some of our workshops, so definitely check those out. But I'd also say like one good way to start, like if you're interested in backpacking, is like backpacking in just a few miles somewhere where you're allowed to, and then like setting up camp and then just like day hiking from there. Like you don't need to do like a huge, that you can do in like one night over a weekend. You don't need to do a huge like week-long trip or anything like that, but that gets like you a good feel for like what it's like to have a backpack and to like figure out what gear you need and not be too far from like the trailhead if you like need to go back because something goes wrong or something like that. And if you're new to it too, like going in areas that are more populated, it might feel better than like places that are super remote. So even if it's like, oh, I don't want to be on like a super popular trail, if it's new for you, like that might feel more comfortable to like know that there's more people around and stuff like that. To if like you're going with a friend or something like that too.
Yeah, I would just add something I think that helped me was thinking about what activities I wanted to get into, like, and then kind of just setting goals around those. Like, I remember as a freshman, I had never climbed before, but I like really wanted to try climbing. And I actually remember setting this as a goal in Flash. That was one of my SMART goals. Side note, that's just something we do in a different internship I did, was like to set these specific goals. And one of mine was to get into climbing. And to go off of what something Tamara said, I was super intimidated at first to like even just walk into the climbing center, like the space that I had never been in and like didn't know if I would be comfortable in. And so I went with a friend for the first time, and that was super helpful. And then just having that goal, like I just kind of built on it over time. Like it wasn't like a fast thing, but I just knew that I wanted to get more into that activity. And so I was always looking for different opportunities or like people that were into that, and then slowly got more comfortable in the space and the community. And so, yeah, I think having the goal was super helpful. And then the same thing kind of happened for me with rafting. It was like, I went on a rafting trip and I then was like, okay, eventually I think I would like to try being a raft guide. And then just having that goal there, I looked for opportunities and always kept thinking about trying to get more experience in it, and um, yeah, found guide school. So figuring out kind of what you want to do and then trying to find those resources would be what I would add.
All right, so then our last question, what personal trips do we have coming up? And then like, how do we get kind of started with the planning process and figuring out where to go, what to do, that sort of thing. Who wants to take that one first?
I can start again. So I don't have a lot of personal trips coming up. This Memorial Day weekend, I wanted to head out and do some rafting on Hag Lake. Unfortunately, one of the people I wanted to go with, it's kind of fallen through, but I still want to try and get out to go to Hag Lake. And I also want to try and do some more hiking in the gorge area, like kind of like the Dallas Dog Mountain, because I really love that area. I want to do some of that during the summer. And I also am trying to put together like a trip to Broken Top, which is like this mountain near Bend. It's a really cool like 15-mile backpacking trip. And I've always, the last couple of years, a lot of different things have happened, so I haven't been able to go, but I really want to try and get that started. And I think my advice would be for planning a trip is sort of, it's a bit different than, it's similar to getting when you're new to the outdoors, because you should definitely have the right equipment. So something I always suggest is having like a packing list and always double checking that. That's one of the most helpful ways for me to stay organized, and it definitely pays off. I don't find that I forget a lot of stuff when I go out on trips, and I think that's really important to do. And with the outdoor program, I think we provide, or equipment center, I think we provide some sort of packing list because we have a lot of them for trips. So if anyone needs them, we have that resource, and that's really, really cool and helpful that we provide that. So I think planning a trip, definitely a packing list. And then as for similar to when you're beginning, is having people to go along with. It's okay to do solo trips, but personally, I think it's a lot safer and just in general, a comfort to have someone along when you're going out for a hike, for a day hike or a camping trip or backpacking. And as for knowing where to go, I think you can basically go anywhere you want to. You just need to keep in mind to have a day pass for parking or anything like that. And yeah, you can basically go anywhere. It's just a matter of some places are more difficult. For example, it's harder to backpack at Broken Top versus like, somewhere a lot closer or a lot less strenuous, basically. So I think that's my biggest advice, is having a packing list, which the Equipment Center outdoor program provides, having the right equipment, having someone to go with, and knowing that you can essentially go anywhere. It's just depending on the places where you choose to go, it definitely takes more planning depending on where you want to go. So I think that those are definitely the biggest things that I would say you should keep in mind as you plan a trip.
Yeah, I feel like for me, with the weather kind of changing, going from like that snowy season to, I don't know, hopefully a little bit drier. It's been pretty dry recently, but definitely some day trips just to go out to the coast and get some surfing in. I think that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Maybe going up to Adams to recreate that trip that Mela was talking about. But I think that goes into just, yeah, like Tamara was saying, finding that information out. I think especially if you're looking at mountain stuff, like folks are posting trip reports all over the place about just like where parking is. And, you know, I think even kind of speaking to what Tamara was talking about with Broken Top, I mean, there's a new permitting system down there. So making sure you understand about that. And like, you know, if you do need those driver and kind of parking passes, the permitting system, especially as more folks are going out, and especially over COVID, I feel like there's been a renewed interest in getting outside. So that's definitely promoting and kind of prompting wilderness areas to especially do some more permitting. So looking at that, and even on the coast, I think, you know, for surfing trips, like going to Ecola State Park, you have to have a state park parking pass. And we've also talked about that, I know, in one of our workshops prior, maybe even two. So definitely some of that, just getting on the water, I think, as it warms up. It's kind of where I'm looking at, shifting gears a little bit.
Yeah, let's see. My trip's coming up. I have been going paddleboarding quite a bit when it was warm. Now it's a little bit rainy, but I think, you know, it'll get warm again soon. So I like to do, recently I've been doing paddleboarding on the Willamette because it's really close by and there's actually a lot of different spots you can explore. When I'm planning a paddleboarding trip, so definitely start with just like Googling different places to put in and different routes. There's tons of information about that online. Some of my favorites recently have been paddling around the Ross Island. And then last time I went up and put in at this Clackamas Park, and then paddled from the convergence of the Clackamas and the Willamette up to Willamette Falls. And that was really beautiful. I saw a sea lion, which was really exciting. Some other things I think about when I'm gonna go paddleboarding is what time I need to get to the parking lot for there to still be parking. Because as people have been saying, it's been pretty busy, especially when it's warm and nice and everybody wants to be on the water. And then things to pack, sunscreen, a dry bag is very nice to bring all your gear. Let's see. Yeah, I also want to do some backpacking after I graduate, but I'm not sure where I'll be going yet. So I need to do some more research, thinking about doing the Lost Coast Trail with some family. My aunt lives down there, so she's done it a few times. That's a trail that you need to definitely look into, like tides and information, because it's right along the coast. And then permits as well. Always thinking about those. Yeah.
Well, a couple things I've planned for this summer. So growing up in Minnesota, I like never went to the Boundary Waters, which is this like network of all these little lakes up in the northern part of Minnesota that border Canada. So I'm going back after I graduate to do a trip up there with my family. It's like canoeing into these lakes and camping along the lakes, and sometimes you can like carry your canoe over to another lake and explore different ones. That'll just be for a few nights, so just to get a taste of it. And then I also I've like tried to make a habit of doing some kind of backpacking trip over my birthday, which is towards the end of July. So I have some friends getting married down there, like close to that. So I'm thinking about down there, I mean, in California. So I've thought about like maybe trying to do something in Yosemite, but that is like there's a lottery system for that. Otherwise you need to apply like a few days before you'd go in. So with that, I'll probably have some like backup plans in case we can't get that, and have some other ideas of something I could do in that area around that time for that trip. And yeah, we'll probably make a packing list and look into like if my car can make it to the trailhead. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. And like a lot of sites and that have like information about the hike will kind of give you that information on like what kind of pavement is there or lack of pavement is there to make it that way. So yeah, those are some things I have in mind. Maybe do like some camping trips with friends or something like that, and probably make it out to the coast a bit. But yeah.
Cool. Well, those are all the questions we got. I think thank you all for stopping by and listening to us talk a little bit. If you do have any questions, over the summer, the Equipment Center will be open from 12 to 6. So feel free if you're like planning a trip or, just want to, learn some more about potential hikes or stand-up paddleboard areas. Like we have a resource library as well. So you can check out some books and maps and that sort of stuff. So definitely feel free to stop by. We're kind of on the corner of Southwest 5th and Harrison. So again, thank you. Thank you, trip leaders, for taking some time to chat. And we look forward to seeing y'all out there.
Thank you.
Bye.